If you're a writer starting a new story, you know how intimidating it is to stare down that first blank page. Here's the scary truth. This first page is either going to make or break your book. Your reader is going to judge your writing based on what they see on this first page. So if you don't pull them in, they're probably going to close the book and put it down and pick up something else. It's a lot of pressure, I know. That's why in this video, we're breaking down the do's and don'ts of writing page one. Common mistakes that new writers make that doom their book from the start, and how to avoid these pitfalls so that you can make your opening page truly explosive and unputdownable. Welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Abby, and I help writers make their stories matter and make their author dreams come true. And if that's something you're on a mission to do, you're going to want to subscribe to this channel. I post writing videos every single Wednesday, and I would love to have you here in the community. Okay, number one, don't start with a cliche hook. A dramatic explosion, a character running for their life, or waking up from a traumatic nightmare can work in some really specific instances, but most of the time, these openings just feel like gimmicks designed to make the reader look. It's like screaming, "Hey, pay attention! This is important! This is dramatic!" But if you don't show us why it's important, why it matters to any of the characters, we don't know why it's important to us. A random explosion or a dramatic event won't impact the reader, won't make them care, unless we see why it matters to the protagonist. You may have heard the writing advice that you should have something significant happening on page one. But significant doesn't necessarily mean a time bomb or a car chase or a character being held at knife point, okay? It doesn't have to be life or death in order to draw us in. A dramatic hook might look something like this. The bomb went off at precisely 6:03 a.m., ripping through the quiet street and sending a fireball into the sky. Sarah jolted awake in her bed 3 blocks away, heart pounding. She stumbled to the window, the sky already glowing orange. Somewhere, sirens began to wail. Sure, it's loud and dramatic, but who is Sarah? Why do we care about her? Does it matter that she woke up to this explosion? Is this just an average Tuesday in her life? Or is this a significant day for some reason to her? Without context or emotional connection, an explosion is just an explosion. There's no character motivation, no personal stakes, no reason for the reader to care about what's happening. It's spectacle without substance. Do create an immediate story question. Starting with a story question is so much more powerful than an overly dramatic hook. A story question shows us that something immediately matters to the main character, and it matters to them because they have a personal stake in what's going on. You may have heard the age-old saying, "New money shouts, old money whispers." Well, the same thing applies for the hook on your first page in your story. A cliche hook shouts, a powerful hook whispers. For example, let's take that same story hook and make something different happen. At 6:03 a.m., the letter slid under Sarah's door. No signature, no return address, just 5 words in stark black ink. "I know what you did." Sarah read it 5 times, her heart lodged in her throat as dark spots crowded her vision. Downstairs, a door thudded shut. The messenger had vanished without a trace, but someone knew, and they wanted Sarah to know they knew. Why does this work? Because there's an immediate story question. What did Sarah do? Why does this other person know? Why are they leaving her a note about it? What's at stake if someone finds out? It matters to the main character, therefore it matters to us. No explosions, no cheap thrills, just the immediate tension of the moment, the internal conflict, what's happening inside the character. That's what makes your reader lean in and ask, why? What is going on here? Mistake number 2, don't start with a white room. Starting with a white room means opening with a vague, abstract description or character's thought process with no context of where we are and what we're looking at. It's important to remember that when you first open a book, you're totally disoriented. It's like being blindfolded and then dropped into a new setting, and we take the blindfold off. Okay, what are we gonna show our reader? You don't want your reader to get stuck on page 1 and then put the book down because they were too disoriented to continue Here's an example of what I mean. She thought about running, about the way the air felt when she moved fast, like freedom wrapped in wind. The world was heavy, pressing in from all sides, and she couldn't breathe. Everything was too loud, or maybe too quiet. She didn't know anymore. There's no setting. There's no hint of where she is, what she's doing, or who she is, or what she's dealing with, or anything that grounds us in a concrete place, time, and conflict. The reader is just drifting in this fog of abstract thoughts and emotions, and we have nothing solid to hold on to. Do anchor the reader in sensory detail. A strong, specific description of where we are and what we're looking at instantly makes a scene feel real. And remember, a little goes a long way. We don't need a ton of description to have a full sensory experience. Focus more on setting a mood rather than painting a fully detailed picture. Make it obvious by at least the second paragraph where we are and what we're looking at. For example, the bitter smell of smoke lingered in the air as Callum stepped under the yellow tape. Police lights pulsed against the brick walls, turning the alley into a stuttering wash of red and blue. He kept his hands in his coat pockets, eyes on the scorched doorway. It didn't look like an accident, and if he was right, then someone had gone to a lot of trouble to make it look like an accident. Here we are dropped into a tangible scene with sensory details. Okay, police lights, the smell of smoke, a scorched doorway. We know where we are and what we're looking at. There's an atmosphere and a mood, but there's also a clear story question. What is going on here? There's enough curiosity to keep us intrigued about what's happening without so much abstract, detached thought process that makes us feel we're in a white room. And kind of leading off of that is mistake number 3, which is don't open with dialogue that lacks context. Snappy dialogue can be great. It can actually be a fantastic way to open your book and have this opening hook where we're plunged right into the middle of a scene. But if the readers don't know who's speaking, where they are, or why any of it matters, they'll be confused, not intrigued. For example, something like this. You're really going to do it? I don't have a choice. You always have a choice. Not this time. What if they find out? They won't. But what if they do? They just won't, okay? Trust me. By this point, your reader is practically screaming,
"Who are these people? What are they talking about? Where are they? What is going on?"
The vagueness doesn't make it mysterious. It makes it confusing and hollow. Without names, a setting, or a clue of what's at stake for these characters, we don't care. On the flip side, do leverage dialogue to show us what's happening and why it matters. Dialogue is a powerful tool when leveraged correctly. We can still have a bit of mystery and intrigue without feeling like we're floating in a void with no idea what's going on. So find that balance between sensory detail and dialogue to keep us grounded in the moment. Plunge us into the thick of the action and use the dialogue to sort of fill in the blanks of what's happening. For example, "You're bleeding," Maya said, reaching for his arm. Jace pulled away, wiping his hand on his jacket. "It's not mine." They stood in the stairwell, one flight above the chaos, sirens blaring outside, footsteps thundering below. Smoke curled under the exit door. Maya stared at him. "What did you do?" He didn't answer. In this case, we know who's talking, who they are, and we feel the tension and the conflict through the description and the sensory details, and also through the dialogue. We're plunged into the middle of something urgent, and the dialogue deepens the suspense rather than creating confusion. Before we move on to mistake number 4, I want to quickly interrupt myself to tell you guys about a special live training that I'm hosting, continuing this discussion into storytelling techniques that actually hook readers on page 1. This one is all about writing tension and suspense. As you've probably noticed, a common theme of today's video has been adding tension and suspense and intrigue and curiosity into your story so that your reader will continue flipping those pages. Because even if you hook them on page 1 with something intriguing, tension is really the secret ingredient that makes them want to keep reading and stay up all night. It's what transforms boring, meh writing into something binge-worthy and unputdownable. That's why in this live training, we're going to explore how to inject real page-turning tension into every scene, even the quiet scenes where nothing big is happening, the difference between real tension versus fake tension, how to hook your reader with tension on the first page so they're dying to know what happens next, my go-to framework for building tension from character desire, not just plot devices, how to raise the stakes without being melodramatic or over the top, and how to avoid the #1 mistake new writers make when trying to add tension to their stories. We're going to break all of this down in the live training, and I hope to see you there. It's happening Sunday, May 4th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And don't stress if you can't make it to the live stream that day, you will still get access to the replay forever. And when you sign up for this live training today, you unlock access to my entire library of over 35 hours of in-depth live trainings diving deep into writing, editing, publishing, creating characters, marketing your book, and so much more. I can't wait to see you there. Save your spot at the link below this video, and let's get back into the page 1 mistakes. Mistake number 4, don't try to be mysterious for the sake of intrigue. Like I keep saying, withholding everything, who the character is, where they are, what's happening, will make your reader confused, not curious. It's important to make your reader curious, yes, but there's a magic ratio, I find, with curiosity and reward. I see it as a balance of 2 to 1. So basically we have twice as many questions as we have answers, but we're still getting answers. We're still getting rewards for our curiosity. When writers try too hard to be mysterious and cryptic, it can sometimes come across feeling like sloppy, vague poetry and not vivid, captivating prose. For example, they said the stars would whisper when it was time. Tonight, they screamed. She moved through the shadows, bare feet silent against the stone. The blade was where she left it, ice cold and waiting for her. Everything was ending, or maybe beginning. It didn't matter anymore. She was ready. It's trying so hard to be cryptic and dramatic, but we have no idea who this main character is, where she is, what is she doing, and why are the stars screaming, and why does that matter? Even in a fantasy world, readers need at least a sliver of clarity before they can latch onto the conflict and care about it. On the flip side of that, do give your main character a very clear micro goal. Even something as simple as, I just need to catch this bus, gives us a sense that this character is moving towards something that matters to them. When we see the importance of this micro goal, then we're interested to see, are they going to accomplish it? Are they going to make it to that next step? Let's go back to that vague fantasy example and give our main character a micro goal that roots us in the conflict of what's happening. Mila pressed her hand to the temple door, praying it would open before the moon slipped behind the clouds. If it closed, she'd be locked out for another cycle, and the blade would be gone by morning. The Emperor's guards were already on the ridge. She could see the torchlight flickering through the mist. 1 minute, maybe less. She glanced over her shoulder, heart hammering. If they caught her trespassing after her brother's arrest, they wouldn't exile her, they'd execute her. We've taken something super vague and turned it into something really personal. The stakes are higher. We have political tension, personal tension, a do or die situation, a race against time. We still have a little bit of a mystery here, like what's the blade? Where is this temple? What is going on? Why does she have to get to it before the Emperor's guards do? There's still those questions. We have curiosity, but it's grounded in concrete action and emotion. Show me enough to care, but leave out enough to make me curious. That's the golden rule. Mistake number 5, don't front load world building. If you're writing something like fantasy or sci-fi, resist the urge to info dump all the lore and the history of your world in that first page. I know you want to explain the magic system and the government and maybe the superpowers of your characters and how everything works, but nobody cares, okay? That's the harsh reality. We do not care. We don't want to open that book and feel like we're immediately reading a Wikipedia page about your fantasy world and how it works and the natural laws that govern it. It's overwhelming and it is not grounded in a character. Therefore, we don't care about it. Here's an example of what I mean. In the time before the Sundering, when the twin moons still rose as one, the kingdoms of Elenvar and Droysai had not yet fractured beneath the weight of the Great Accord. The mage lords of the Eastern Reach still held dominion over the skyways, and the elemental rites had not been outlawed by the 9th Emperor's decree. But when the God Veil cracked, splitting the realm root into 7 planes, chaos swept through the veiled lands and cast the chosen into exile. Only then did the star saviors rise. There were at least 7 proper nouns in that paragraph and 0 mentions of actual characters. We don't know who we're following, why any of this matters right now, or why we should care about any of it. So on the flip side of that, do show world building through action. This is my golden rule of world building and exposition. Let the world unfold naturally as your character moves through it. This is called exposition through action. We have an anchor point of this main character. We have a little bit of a hint of what matters to them and what they care about, their internal conflict. And we see them moving towards that micro goal on page 1, and they're moving through the world as they do it. And remember, this world is ordinary to them, okay? They're not gonna hit the brakes to tell you how everything works. They're just going to move through it naturally. Challenge yourself to only mention the parts of your world that matter to your protagonist and what they're doing right now. So let's look at a better example. The guards at the border checkpoint didn't bother to look up as Rin slipped her forged travel slip onto the table. Good. That meant the charm was still working. She kept her head low, hood drawn, the scent of burnt copper clinging to her robes from the forge she'd passed on her way through the alchemy district. Just 5 more steps, and she'd be across the threshold into Imperial territory, where magic was banned and where the name Rin Takara was still splashed across wanted posters. See the difference? We're thrust right into the middle of this fantasy world, but we're seeing it through the main character's eyes as she moves towards that micro goal, which in this case is crossing the border. We get hints of the world, travel slips, forbidden territories, magic charms, alchemy forges. We're setting the mood here, but all of it is relevant to what's happening right now to this main character. And number 6, don't overdo the prose. Trying too hard to sound literary with a wall of overwritten metaphors and flowery language and literary sounding poetic prose is more likely to push your reader away rather than drawing them in. Opening a scene with vivid, colorful detail can be great, but if it's just scenery with no connection to a character or conflict or anything that matters, your reader is going to be bored. I can't tell you how many books I have picked up that start something like this. The sun spilled its molten gold across the emerald hills, each blade of grass trembling with dew-laced reverence beneath the kiss of dawn. A gossamer breeze meandered through the heather, rustling secrets older than time itself. The sky blushed a pale coral, as if the heavens themselves were shy of waking. In the distance, the river sang its eternal lullaby to the slumbering earth. Sure, it sounds pretty, but who are we following? What do they want? What is their internal conflict? Why does it matter? This kind of detailed description might work as a poem, but not as the first page of your novel. When you get so enamored of the language itself and how pretty it has to sound, you forget to pull your reader into the story. Okay, that is the most important thing. If there's no character and no emotion, there's no reason to keep reading. So on the flip side, do hint at your protagonist's internal conflict. Even if your main external conflict won't kick in until a few chapters from now, you should still be using this moment, this first page, to plant the seeds of tension for your character's internal conflict. Remember, they're dealing with something long before the story begins. So rather than hitting your reader with a bunch of flowery, overwritten prose, challenge yourself to pique their curiosity with a hint at the character's inner conflict. How can we drop a meaningful clue to what this character is struggling with internally in that first paragraph? For example, I was 29 minutes late to my ex-boyfriend's wedding, which, in hindsight, was the most punctual I'd been to any of his events. I sat in the back pew, clutching a gift bag with a bottle of mid-shelf champagne and a card that said, "Congrats on your next bad decision." Technically, I wasn't bitter. I just hadn't planned on showing up without a date. This works because it has a clear voice, tone, mood, and already a situation that's brimming with tension and awkwardness. And the internal conflict is baked right into the moment. We have a main character who's clearly still struggling with unresolved feelings, maybe a little bit of denial, maybe a little bit of bitterness and resentment, and we already see that she's rife with internal conflict. There's no need for purple prose. We're already drawn in by the character and what she's dealing with internally. And hopefully we're curious at this point of what she's going to do next. So boom, there you have it. The top 6 cringy mistakes to avoid with that first page and what to do instead. If you want to take this one step further and level up your whole first chapter, I highly recommend checking out this video where I talk about the do's and don'ts of chapter 1. Common mistakes that new writers make, and how to avoid these pitfalls. Smash that like button if you liked this video, and make sure you subscribe to this channel because I post writing videos every single Wednesday, and I would love to have you here in the community. Until next week, my friend, rock on.